Welcome to By the Way with Beth and Stacey. I am Beth Cooper.
I'm Stacey Earlywine, and it is the day after the eclipse.
It is the day after the eclipse, and it was fantastic. Here in Clay County, we're in totality, and it was
fun.
It was super fun. Now, this was my second time in totality.
I've never been in totality.
I was in totality in 2017. We drove about an hour and a half south of here to be in it, and it was really cool, but it was not near as cool as this time. This time, the totality lasted longer. Yeah. And it wasn't cloudy. It was a real clear day.
It was beautiful.
And it was it was a great day.
I love driving around, and I was nosy. I'm not going to lie. I was nosy. I was everywhere yesterday. And so I love going by Walmart parking lot and seeing everybody tailgating and...
I heard about that.
You know, tailgating, the park was full, and Kiwanis Park. It was just fun seeing all the different people. Went and got gas at Casey's, and there was a bunch of different. I don't know. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
I heard there were people here from London, England, and Flora. They were all over. At the party I was at, the farthest one that came was from Seattle. She flew in from Seattle, but there was also Chicago, Arizona people that came from all over.
Really? Well, the party that Jim and I were at, they were from their house.
Yeah.
Jim and I didn't go anywhere. We just sat on the back porch with our dogs.
I have to say, I mean, I had a great time where I was with great friends, but I was also a little tempted to just sit on the back deck because I really wanted to set up a time-lapse camera and film my chickens. I know that seems silly, but I knew they would go to roost.
Did they?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, you don't know.
I didn't set the camera up, but I'm sure they did. They probably went to bed, and then they were like, "Oh, already time to get up." So,
well, the funniest thing is people lose their mind over dogs, over their animals.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, the dogs need glasses. It's like the dogs are not going to look up at the sky.
No,
the dogs are going to act so crazy. You might want to get the dog whisperer in. It's like we let Saffron and Raptor out. I have a corgi named Raptor and a black lab named Saffron. They were like. It was a regular day for the dogs. They were like,
no. I was at the party I was at. There was a veterinarian there, and we had a big laugh about everybody's panic over their pets. Because there's no truth to it.
There is no truth to it at all.
But the chickens naturally go to roost, but it's not like any of the animals were going to look up at the sun.
You know, what I did notice, though, is how quiet it was. Because once it got dark, the birds,
the night birds, the ones that chirp at night, they were all out, weren't they?
They were all out. And the other thing I thought was funny about it was when it broke and it started lighting up, they were like, it was funny. I loved it. Jim and I just sat on the back, like I said, we just sat on the back porch with our glasses. And then I forgot that I needed to run to the bank and put a deposit in. And it was fun just seeing people just out in their yard. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it.
And
I hope I'm almost positive Clay County was very cordial to the guests that came in.
I hope so.
It made me think, could you imagine if you lived in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and that stadium's right in the middle of your town, and thousands and thousands and thousands of people come to watch a game?
No.
Can you imagine?
I know tourism would be really good for Clay County's economy, but honestly, it brings a lot of negatives with it too. Not to say that I don't want any tourism there, but I'm glad we don't have thousands of people flocking to Clay County every year. It's nice being in our own little corner.
But in Green Bay, it's probably 4 or 5 times.
Oh yeah, I'm sure
every year, in a season. Can you imagine?
If you lived in a place like in Michigan, you know that one little town that's on the island. What's it called?
Fiddlesticks, Beth.
I know. Well, anyway,
we know
it's this really cool little town that only has I think 500 people live there year round. But in the summer, it's thousands and thousands of people.
It's not Saginaw, is it?
No,
because I love that place. That was right on the water. That wasn't an island, though.
I'll have to look it up. My mind went blank. Mackinac
Island.
Mackinac Island, and I think if I lived there year round, I would be so sad when all the people started flooding the town again. And I know that's their bread and butter. Right. They need the money, but also it's
well, that would be like Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, all those. The Cape Cod, which I've been to all 3 of them and loved it. I love Massachusetts. It's a sweet, state. Loved it. But so I don't know. Very interesting.
Yep, very interesting.
Okay, we're going to I'm going to do an ad. Which ad am I going to pull up? Oh, yeah. Okay, well, first off, before we show the ad, this is the magazine. This is a magazine called True. Okay? True.
It's a man's magazine.
It's a man's magazine. This
Made for men.
From March 1963. Yeah, it's interesting. Don Thomas, Beth and I made a trip over to Don Thomas's, and he gave me this magazine, and it's really super cool. But I came across, okay, so this picture, this ad I found today. Have you ever heard of this vehicle?
Corvair
Greenbrier.
I've heard of Corvair, but I thought it was a sports car.
No, look at this van. So look at the man and wife. Look how cute she is with her little app. They're fishing, and they're like literally in the stream. Corvair Greenbrier. To pitch camp, turn off ignition. You may not fish from it, but you'll have camp set up before you leave your driveway. The Corvair Greenbrier sports wagon is bigger than most wagons, so you can stow all the gear and groceries you'll need and still not be pinched for passenger space. It has wide double doors for easy loading, big windows everywhere you look. You can outfit it with such extra cost items as a radio. Can you imagine? Built-in compartments, bedding, table, stove, or anything else you find to make your excursion more enjoyable.
So it's like a little tiny motorhome.
Right?
That you can drive into shallow water.
And fish. Of course, one thing that comes with the key is its remarkable rear engine traction. Like any Corvair, it makes tracks where others fear the tread.
So it's rear-wheel drive?
Yep. Ask your nearby Chevrolet dealer about it and listen for its surprisingly low price. Chevrolet division of General Motors, Detroit to Michigan.
I would think it would get easily stuck.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking, because those are just little baby tires.
Uh-huh. And it looks like the front end is like high up on a rock, and the back end's a little deeper.
Yeah, the front tire is definitely not in the water like the back.
I think they are stuck.
I think
they are stuck, and the husband's got his hand on his chin because he's like, I guess I'll just fish. I don't know.
He doesn't look real thrilled. She's
this.
looking out there like, oh my God, I can't believe I said yes to this stupid camping trip. And he's sitting here thinking, oh gee, I'm stuck, and she's really going to be ticked when we try to leave.
And let's talk about can we talk a minute about the fish hanging from the, door that they've already caught? And is that going to make the whole van stink?
Yeah. It's like, but why does the van need to be in the river?
Yeah.
Why can't you just park over there on that green grass? Because
I don't think that... Well, it's just an advertisement, but I don't think the husband thought of that one through. Maybe.
No, that's why it just caught my. I'm not going to lie. I've looked this all over, and I never even noticed the fish hanging on the doors.
Oh, really? That's all I'm looking at. I'm really staring at him like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you let him?
I didn't even notice the fish, and I've literally got the magazine in front of me. Beth's young eyes are staring at the screen. To pitch camp, turn off engine.
Okay.
I just thought that was funny, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
interesting. I thought that was
a good one.
I don't know. I'd never heard of that vehicle before.
Yeah, that's a good one. It probably didn't last long.
Well, probably not.
We'd have to look that up.
We'd have to look that up, I guess. Yeah. So today, we're gonna finish last.
Yeah, so last week we kind of dove into gangsters of Southern Illinois, and we talked a lot about Charlie Berger, the last man hanged in Illinois, and then we touched a little bit on the Shelton gang, but I didn't really have enough time to just really talk a lot about the Sheltons as much as the Berger, and we kind of focused a little bit on the 1920s and how that went. And today we're going to talk about the Shelton gang, but we're going to move up a few decades and talk about them not just in the 20s, but the 30s, 40s, and 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah. I don't know much about the Sheltons, but are there still family members?
There are descendants. Yes.
In the Wayne County area.
No, but in Florida. In Florida.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So none of the Sheltons, none of this gang lives in Wayne County anymore.
I don't think so. And I will apologize it now if I say anything offensive, because I don't want to get shot.
I mean, because gangsters are not offensive at all. They are, yeah.
Whatever I say, I mean
we got a little bit of time
respect.
before we go to our first commercial.
Okay,
you want to go ahead and dive in?
Yeah. So basically, the Shelton gang was ran by three brothers. Three brothers. There was more in the family, but there was Carl, and there was Earl, and there was Bernie.
Okay.
Okay. Though, but they had other brothers. they had 2 other brothers, Roy and Dalta, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But those first 3 are the ones that ran the gang. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this whole entire family was born and raised in the Pond Creek area, which is southeast of Fairfield, I believe, and they grew up on a farm. Okay, and the dad was he was Baptist. It was a Christian home. They went to church every Sunday. The dad, his name was Ben. He was a Sunday school superintendent at their church. The boys, they even taught Sunday school for a while. Like, these kids were not raised in a house where they didn't know right from wrong. Like, they were raised in a home where right and wrong was taught, where values were taught, but none of that really stuck, I think.
Right.
And they entered a life of crime. Dun, dun, dun.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah.
It has to come down to money.
It really did. Because it was Prohibition.
Right.
And, we talked a little bit last week about Charlie Berger and how he had the vehicles that would go down to Florida and pick up rum and other whiskey and other things and bring them in to the United States. Well, the Sheltons were involved in that as well. Mm-hmm. And so they learned pretty quick that how to bring alcohol in and make money off of it.
We're getting ready to go up, but before we go to commercial break, I've got to make a comment, too.
Okay.
So, on Netflix, Smokey and the Bandit is on Netflix. So I rewatched Smokey and the Bandit as an adult. I haven't watched it since I was 10 years old.
No, I haven't watched it in years.
1977. And it's literally about taking alcohol across state line.
Yeah.
In
That's
1977.
True. Was it like moonshine or something? Or what
No,
were
it was
doing?
Coors beer.
Coors beer.
But you couldn't take it from... because this one guy paid him to go to Georgia, go to Alabama or wherever, whatever, and across state line, and the police literally chased Smokey and the Bandit. Across, they chased the Bandit and Snowman because you could not take liquor across state line.
There's still rules. I mean, there's still counties out there that are dry that people bootleg in. I mean, it still happens.
It still happens.
And before Prohibition, there was kind of a soft Prohibition where there was already counties and parts of states that were dry. So all of these bootleggers kind of started at that time. So then by the time Prohibition really went into effect, they were practiced at it. They had it down to a science. Yeah. So they were ready to rock and roll.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break because I am interested in the Shelton gang. We'll be right back.
At your locally owned Napa Auto Parts stores in Flora and Louisville, you can count on experts to have the solutions to keep you running on the road or in the field. More than just your car, the Napa Auto Parts stores in Flora and Louisville carry a large inventory of Napa products for farms, heavy trucks, and just about everything that moves. Experienced associates understand your needs and are ready to help with the perfect part at a great value. That's Napa Know-How at your locally owned Napa Auto Parts stores in Flora and Louisville. Briscoe Surplus Sales on the northeast edge of Flora is your one-stop do-it-all shop. Looking for rugged boots and footwear from great brands like Lacrosse, Rocky, and Carolina? They're there. How about top-notch small engine parts and service? Briscoe Surplus Sales has it. Whether you're wiring your switches or switching your wiring, Briscoe Surplus Sales has the solution and the know-how to help you get the job done right the first time. Briscoe Surplus Sales, your one-stop do-it-all shop.
We like technology at Flora Savings Bank. Here's what you can accomplish in our mobile banking app in less than 30 seconds. See account balances in your transactions, set up an account alert, make a transfer between accounts, get an alert text message about your transfer, pay a bill, turn your debit card off and then back on. It all happens in the palm of your hand with our free My Bank to Go app. Search My Bank to Go in the App Store or Google Play and give mobile banking a try. Flora Savings Bank, member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Welcome back to By the Way with Beth and Stacey. Today we're talking about the Shelton gang, a little extension of what we talked about last week. So just to kind of recap a little bit on how the Sheltons were involved with Charlie Berger gang is that they were all bootleggers. They were all in Southern Illinois. The Shelton gang was kind of in East St. Louis, and then they would come back to like the Heron area. They had roadhouses and bars all over the place. At first they worked with Charlie Berger, then they separated, and then they went to war. They dropped the Shelton gang, dropped an aerial bomb onto Charlie Berger's Roadhouse hideaway. Shady Rest.
It was justified. He did steal money from him, so it was.
He did. They were
Charlie
both
Berger was
horrible
a bad,
to each
bad
other.
man.
He was a bad man.
He was a bad man.
He was a bad man, but he looked like a nice man. He's one of those that had like the
and that
dual.
horrible sheriff.
Uh-huh.
What was that? Young?
Yeah, he was the KKK leader. So the Sheltons also were fighting the KKK in the 20s along with Berger because the KKK was against a lot of things, but lawlessness and anyone that wanted to drink was the reason for really attacking
they're
people.
Pretty much okay with it. The Klan is just an interesting.
So anyway, so the Sheltons and Berger were against the Klan, won that war, got the Klan out of Williamson County.
Yep.
Then they were partners for a little bit, split up, whatever. They went to war with each other, and Charlie Berger ended up getting hung for his part in the murder of the sheriff of West City, Illinois.
Unfortunately, not the sheriff he should have shot.
Yeah, right. Well, that guy died too. The thing is, all of the men in all of these stories, they all shot each other up. Like nearly everybody died. Yeah. Not many survived, but the Sheltons did survive, and because
they did come out on top.
And they kind of did come out on top. They served time in prison. They've all went to Leavenworth different times. Roy, the one that wasn't one of the ones that wasn't in the gang. He was a career criminal too. He just wasn't a leader of the gang. But one of the main reasons that he wasn't involved in any of that is because he had already left for prison. He went to prison for a long time when he was young. So he was in prison during a lot of the bad things that happened.
Was he a younger brother? Where did he fall in the line?
He was
the oldest one?
He was in the middle somewhere.
So he would have been part of the gang had he not already been in jail. Because it is crazy in there. How many boys were there? 4, 5 total boys?
Let's show the family picture. I have one picture here that's of the family.
Yeah, I want to see these guys.
Now,
who are we looking at here?
Okay, so
gosh, they all look just alike,
and they do. And don't they look like just your normal average American family that you would just be like, oh, they're so sweet. Okay, so sitting front and center is Ben and Agnes. Okay, that's the mom and dad, and they had all of these children, good Christian people that were. Probably not perfect parents. Obviously, I think Agnes sort of babied her kids and and enabled them a little bit. Maybe
probably.
Ben was more strict, but didn't seem to have a lot of control. Okay, so on the front row, the woman on the far left, her name's Lula. She was the baby sister. She could do no wrong, and she grew up to be a wild child. She was a wild child and a wild adult.
Yeah.
And she ran around with the boys. She did the drinking. She went to the houses of ill fame. She did. She had lots of boyfriends.
Yeah.
She was wild. Okay. On the other side of the mother is Ethel, and that's the other sister. She wasn't quite as wild. The boys ended up buying her an orange grove farm in Florida, and she moved down there and ran that. And I think she was probably in her 30s when she started to do that. But before that, she ran a traveling roller skating rink that went all over Southern Illinois. And I even saw a picture of that in Fairfield. She would all of these guys loved to roller skate. Okay, so in the back row on the far left is that one, I believe, is Roy. Okay, so he's the one that went to prison for a long time when he was younger. He does look like he could be one of the oldest.
Yeah, I bet he's one of the older ones.
And then he got out. He did help the brother some as a chauffeur when he was out. He was kind of piddling and everything, but I think he went to prison more than one time. Okay, and then the second one from the left is Carl, and he was the leader of the Shelton gang. Okay, he was the boss man. To the right, in the center, the one in the tan shirt, in the very center of the back row is Earl, and he is he was like the second lieutenant. He did whatever Carl told him to, and he helped run things too. That man lived to be old.
Really?
Okay. And then next to him in the tie is Dalta. Dalta was the one that was not involved in a lot of crime and not involved in the gang. The other brothers told Dalta to stay back and take care of mom and dad. That was his job, was to stay back and take care of mom and dad. He went on to tell his daughter, who is the one that she wrote a book about it, about the family, and he told his daughter that his brothers told him he wasn't smart enough to be in the gang. He wasn't smart enough, and to just stay back. So they thought he was an idiot.
Okay, there you go.
I think he was a lot smarter than they were.
I was going to say, yeah, to me, he is the smart one.
Because he stayed out of trouble. He took care of his parents. He had a family. And he, and I'm sorry, I said earlier that was his daughter that wrote the book. It was his granddaughter that wrote the book. But, yeah, and I think he made some smarter decisions than the others. And he also lived to be older. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the one on the far right in the back with the smile, it looks like a real jovial kind of guy, like a real friendly person.
Probably slit your throat if you weren't.
Oh, yeah. Mean as a snake.
He was probably the hit man. He looks like he'd be the hit man.
He was the brawn.
He looked like
the others were the brains. He was the brawn.
Yeah.
He did what
needed to be
he
done,
did the dirty work, and
supposedly.
his name was Bernie Shelton. That's him. Okay, so that is
pretty,
the family.
It makes you wonder if mom and dad, if mom just thought her kids could do no wrong, and if dad was incredibly strict. It's unusual to have 7 children and them all be wild and bad.
Yeah.
I would say there's,
it talked a little bit about there. I feel like mom, I feel like the dad just didn't really get a lot of say in things.
Yeah, mom probably, and she babied him. Because that's unusual. Usually that you have one bad apple, but 7. Mm-hmm. You know, of course, the one on the bottom right you said wasn't she.
Yeah, and that Dalto really not either. I mean, I don't think he was perfect, but I don't think he was.
Probably because they wouldn't let him.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, very interesting family.
Yeah. So that's the family, and so in the timeline of things, let's see where I'm at with it. So they did the bootlegging. Charlie Berger was out of the picture. They kind of went back to East St. Louis area because they were just kind of letting things cool off, die down in Williamson County, Franklin County, that area, because it had gotten kind of bad there. So they went back to East St. Louis for a little bit. But at this time, the bigger gangs of the United States were trying to increase their territory. So we're talking Al Capone from Chicago.
Yeah, what year are we in right now?
We're in the late 20s, early 30s. Okay, so
right in the middle.
Yeah, so Al Capone joined, like, his Chicago syndicate is what they called it, joined up with the St. Louis gangsters, and they were, like, I guess for a while teamed up and wanted to increase their territory, which they did. They ran, like, all of the St. Louis area, all of Illinois, with the exception of the Shelton gang's territory.
And they stayed away.
And they pretty much stayed away from the Sheltons. They didn't really want to work together, and they didn't really. You would have thought that the whole Al Capone thing would have just came down here and
wiped them out, but
eventually that did happen. But for a while it didn't. For a while it worked okay. So the Sheltons were in East St. Louis a lot, or at least the 3 boys. And then things in Wayne County kind of started to go south for the family. So, and I don't know exactly what year that started, but I will tell you that Dalta had 2 sons. And their names were Little Earl and Lil Carl. Okay, so there was Big Carl and Big Earl, and there was Little Carl and Little Earl.
But Dalta, the one that wasn't involved, named his sons after the 2 bad brothers.
Because everybody loved. I mean, they
had
a lot of respect for their family. You know,
gangsters usually do.
Yeah, and so, and then the only other grandchild out of all of those 7 kids, his name was Jimmy, and he was born to Lula. The wild child, the youngest, one? She had a little boy named Jimmy.
So out of those 7 kids,
only 3 grandkids: Little Carl, Little Earl, and Jimmy.
Really?
Wow,
that's surprising.
Well, and then one illegitimate one named Elaine. That that no one really talked to her until she was a grown adult.
Okay.
Nope. That would have been a grandchild, not a
Okay.
So
only
great
three
that would have been a
grandchi-
great
yeah.
grandchild. There was only 3 grandkids: little Carl, little Earl, and Jimmy.
Wow.
Okay, so little Carl went on to have 2 kids, little Elaine, that he didn't tell anyone about until she was grown, and then the one that wrote this book, Ruthie Shelton. Okay, and Ruthie she didn't even know about her family when she was growing up. Her dad, little Carl, wouldn't tell her anything about her family. She had to do a thing for school where she had to turn in her family tree, and he wouldn't fill it out. She had to turn it in blank. If she went to and she grew up in Florida, if she went to the mailbox, she was told not to stand in front of the mailbox when she opened it in case it had a bomb in it. But I'm going to get to all this. So she had a really weird childhood, and she didn't really know why her parents were so overprotective like this.
Right.
Okay. Well, when her dad, little Carl, got really old, he was in his 90s and he was in the hospital, he started telling the whole story. It just kind of came out piece by piece, and the daughter was like, "What, Dad, what are you talking about? No one's trying to kidnap you." And he would lay there and he'd be like, they've got me on the dock, I'm all tied up, help me, they kidnapped me. And she was like, what is going on?
So did those 3 grandsons continue on the bootlegging business?
They did.
So they followed suit.
So they became the chauffeurs. So,
Oh my God.
and the thing about Bernie and Carl and Earl and even Roy is that they all loved Wayne County. They loved the Pond Creek area. That was home, and they felt safe there. And so they would come back home and farm. So when they weren't doing their criminal business in East St. Louis or Southern Illinois, and then later Peoria, they would just come back to the farm and spend days there. They did their crops. They had beans. They had corn. I mean, they were running a full farm when they weren't doing this other stuff. And everyone in Wayne County knew him. And it was very similar to the Charlie Berger story and the fact that the Wayne Countyans loved him. Like a lot of people thought they were fantastic. When these boys did die, there were thousands upon thousands of people that went to their funerals.
That's what's so weird about the whole thing.
Because they were really good to the good people of the county. The people that didn't like them were bad guys.
Well, you got to take into consideration, we're talking like when you've got the Klan down there, and the Klan didn't care about what color your skin was. If you were not born on American soil, you were the enemy.
Right.
It didn't matter. You could be white, black, brown, green, purple. They didn't care. So you got to take in consideration since I understand the mentality of the people. Like if I'm down there, if my parents that came from Scotland and Ireland, we would not have been. The Klan wouldn't have liked me because they weren't. So I can see. Yeah. Where they were would be like, hey, I understand that.
You could have been a American. You could have been born here, but if you were Catholic or if you had a bottle of liquor in your home, even if you were Baptist, but you had a wine in your home, you were done. The KKK would do away with you.
So I can see. We're going to come right back and we'll talk more about it. But I get why people liked him. I understand.
Yeah, they did fight the bad guys for sure.
We'll be right back.
If you're looking for a loan for your brand new home, call Clay County State Bank. If you want to transfer money so your future will look sunny, call Clay County State Bank.
We got checking and savings and bill pay too.
An online bank, just ask our crew. For all your banking needs, we think you will agree.
Clay County State Bank is the place you need to be.
Clay County State Bank.
At Clay City Banking Company, we're all on the same team, regardless of zip code. At home, work, school, or across the country, you can be part of our team with our cutting-edge mobile banking products. From your hand, you can check balances, transfer money, make deposits, and pay bills. Looking for a loan? We've got you covered with our mortgage, agriculture, commercial, and consumer loans. Join our team today. Clay City, Flora, Louisville, and Fairfield Banking Companies. We're the hometown banks, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
Tomorrow. Some fear the uncertainty it brings. Some trust the promise it holds. At Grinnell Mutual, we are always looking forward to tomorrow, growing and innovating. So even if the plans you have for the future aren't the same as the plans that the future holds for you, you can be ready. Because we'll be ready. like we have been for over 100 years. Trust in that. Trust in tomorrow. Talk to your mutual agent today.
Your local agent is on the square. Louisville, Clay County Farmers Mutual Insurance.
Welcome back to By the Way with Beth and Stacey. Today we're talking about the Shelton gang, and the amount of money that these guys were raking in is unbelievable. Okay,
Is it?
Oh my gosh! So I do want to say that in 1951, the U.S. Senate had a set of hearings about organized crime, and they focused on the Sheltons in Illinois during their Senate hearing.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's how big they were.
Is that terrible to say? That's super cool.
Yeah. So during this hearing, so this is a quote. A careful estimate of their income at the peak of their success in 1930 was that they were collecting $2 million a year from slot machines,
Wow.
$1,500,000 from handbooks, another $1 million from gambling, such as dice, etc., and $250,000 from vice. Estimates were they had collected approximately $5 million a year, and after paying for protection and other costs of operations, the Sheltons netted between $1.5 million to $2 million each year.
No way.
$5 million a year, and that's before the illegal liquor take. So that doesn't even include any of the liquor that they were bootlegging.
on.
That is only from the gambling rings that they sold in all these roadhouses that had illegal gambling machines.
Wow.
So that's how much money they were making.
Jeez Louise.
Pretty crazy. Carl went back to jail for a little bit for something that he actually didn't do. They got him on a stolen car charge that he hadn't stolen.
And he was innocent.
And of all, like, he even, I think, has a quote of, like, I've done a lot of things. Well, no, that was Charlie's quote that he had. But there, he's like, of all the things, and I get put in jail for the one
thing I didn't do.
But he was.
Is that called karma?
I guess probably. He wasn't there for very long.
How
but
funny.
He did have people, so buffaloed because he was an Eddie Haskell. He was super nice and polite, and everyone was like, this can't be a bad guy, But even a paper in Edwardsville had a quote that said, Mr. Shelton, according to available information, displays a really pleasing personality and has the appearance of a clean-cut young businessman. Persons who claim to know him say they wonder about the truth of the stories concerning him. They wonder if he really is as bad as he is painted. Truly a most interesting character in any event. And that's how they all were.
Yeah.
And that's why it's kind of hard to pick a side on all of this, because
it really is.
Okay, so I'm going to throw a new character into the mix.
Go with the Sheltons.
I'm throwing a new character.
Okay, what is it?
His name's Blackie Harris, or they called him Black Charlie.
Black Charlie
Harris. Now, he was also born and raised in Wayne County, the same area. Okay, Pond Creek, and he had went to church with the Sheltons when they were little. They all attended Sunday school together. They knew each other. But as they grew up and they were in this life of crime, they kind of turned on each other and became enemies. The Sheltons decided they did not need Black Charlie, and they kind of just like what happened, I think, is that Black Charlie went to prison for 10 years for something that the Sheltons did. And they told him, just take the rap on this one. When you get out, we'll treat you really good and we'll make it up to you or whatever. This guy served his 10 years in prison and he got out. And the Sheltons were like, who are you? I don't even know who you are.
Oh, no way.
Didn't have anything to do with him.
No way.
Yeah. So in the meantime, Black Charlie decided, oh, you're going to be like that? You're going to play that game? I'm going to kill you all. And he did. I mean, one by one, he took out all the Sheltons.
Oh, are you kidding?
No.
He's the one that took them all out?
Well, it's still unsolved. It's a cold case. Nobody knows. Nobody knows who really killed these guys. And there's several suspects. It could be Black Charlie because he wanted it. He had it out for him, and he knew the area.
If you took the fall, if you got thrown under the bus for 10 years, I'd want to take him out too.
Or it could have been Al Capone and the whole Chicago crime syndicate because they also wanted his territory. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
It could have been, yeah. It could have go either way, and there's different stories that different people did each brother in. I don't know. But let's talk first about Carl. Okay, he was the leader. He had been in so many shootouts through the years, had so many enemies. always had protection, always had bodyguards, always had machine guns on him, always had pistols on him. But when he went home to Pond Creek, he felt safe and he was a little bit more relaxed. Okay, so for whatever reason, one day he was like headed to the field. I think he was going to go take beans in or whatever, and he drove a Jeep. It was not in a lot of his vehicles were armored vehicles. This was not an armored vehicle. He was on the back roads out there by his farm. He didn't have anybody with him. Black Charlie had been seen in the area because he was also raised in that, and so he knew that he could be around, whatever. But he was ambushed. He went over this small bridge, and this was in the I'd have to look up the year, but I want to say the early 50s, might have been the 40s. He went over this bridge, and a whole bunch of shooters were in the brush and shot him up. I think he ended up with 3 different gun types in him. He had I want to say 20 some gunshots in him. Okay. I mean, this is like a gangster movie, and he ended up face down dead in a ditch. Okay. But his brother, I think it was his brother, and his nephew, this little Carl, or maybe it was little Earl. They're all the same, but they were on the same road, but they were a ways from him. They couldn't get to him fast enough. But anyway, he was dead, and they think that Blackie Harris was the one that shot him because, and Blackie did say that he was on that road, but he wasn't the one that did it. He came up behind it, which is possible. I don't know.
Yeah, but if they was ambushed. So did Harris have his own gang too?
So the thing about Harris, he was kind of more of a lone wolf, but he had this little sweet niece, and he would take her with him everywhere in the car so that he knew no one would shoot at him because he had this sweet little girl with him.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't know that girl, I mean, she's there's a whole other book about her story, about his story too, but I don't think she realized at the time that why she was, I mean, it was just
Probably
her favorite uncle, and she was just hanging out with her Uncle Charlie that day. And instead he knew hey, put her in the car. But anyway, she was with him that day, and she remembers coming up on it. And so then they turned around and went the other way. So she says it couldn't have been him, is from what I understand. Now, I haven't read
it. Had to have been another rival with all those different 20, it had to have been another rival.
Yeah. So
and if he was a lone wolf, he may not have, that could have been Capone.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it wouldn't make sense if he didn't have
Capone's
a gang.
people. Capone's
Right,
people.
yeah.
Okay, so then that left Earl and Bernie. Okay, so
Earl and Bernie.
Bernie at this time was mainly operating out of Peoria, and he had a bar there, and he always had bodyguards with him. He was always watching, and he went out to the parking lot of his bar, and the bodyguard guy with him was like, "Oh shoot, I forgot my smokes. I'm gonna run back in and get them." Other guy turns around, goes in to get a cigarette. Somebody is laying across the road. A rifleman, a sharpshooter, a sniper, just takes Bernie out. He's done. Well, I think he didn't die immediately. He walked back into the bar and was like, "I'm going to die." They called an ambulance, and then I think he died. But so
I wish these buildings still exist. I wish their bars, the buildings that their bars and stuff
don't
exist anymore.
So
that's a shame.
The mother
that should have been turned into something.
Oh,
we could have.
Yeah.
Southern Illinois could have profited big time on that.
Right.
Sorry,
so
that's just
Agnes,
capitalist over here.
Agnes was just mortified when Carl died. Just not my Carl, not my Carl. You know?
And that poor lady.
Yes, and I think there was over 5, and this was all in Fairfield. There was over 5,000 at his funeral.
Where's he buried? Where are they buried?
I don't know. We got to go. It's in Fairfield.
Okay, let's go.
So then. After Carl died, Roy was, I think I have a picture about Roy and him standing in a field tie. There's, that one, please. Let's look at that. Okay, so Roy this was in 1950, so this was shortly after Carl died, and it kind of tells the story there, but he was just out on his tractor, disking the field, and some man shot him. I mean, they shot him dead out there in the middle of that field where he was farming. And then they ran this picture in the paper, which I feel like it's kind of not necessary. But that's Roy down there in the bottom when he was a younger man. But he was 65 when this happened. So now Carl's dead. Now Roy's dead. So Agnes has had to bury another adult child. Then Bernie. Okay?
Yeah.
And Peoria. So then she buries, thank you, Ty. So then she buries the third boy. And by this time, Ethel is already down in Florida with her orange grove farm that the boys had bought her. And all of the boys owned a lot of land down in Florida because that's, if you remember, they go back and forth to Florida a lot because that's where the booze was coming in on the ships, okay? And so the only kids that are left were in the Wayne County area were Dalta and Lula and that's it, I think.
Okay.
Because Ethel was gone. So
yeah, Ethel was Lula and Dalta. Dalta, the one that's not in the game.
And Earl. He was still here.
Around.
Earl. Yeah, he was the number 2 man, but he was still here. Well, none of them wanted to leave their land. And the mom and the somewhere in here, the dad passed away. So right before Carl died, the dad passed away, Ben. So it was the mom dealt with Ben, then Carl, then Roy, then Bernie. All died.
What's the time period?
This is the late 40s, early 50s. So she had buried 4 family members, and none of them really wanted to leave Pond Creek because that was home. But they were being shot at. People were driving by their houses, gunfire in their windows all the time. Their houses all burnt down. Their barns burnt down. Basically, they were running them out of Wayne County.
Right.
So everything was they were either shot or their homes were burned down.
Yeah.
And so finally they all just picked up and moved to Florida one night. They just, and just everybody's gone, went to Florida. And lived down there and kind of lived a quieter life and kept to themselves and didn't really go. I don't even know if they used the name Shelton so much. It was real.
They probably changed their name.
Like little Carl and little Earl. Little Earl lived right there in Fairfield, and even though he and his brother Carl had only been chauffeurs and not really, and kind of came in the later years, they were still a Shelton boy.
Oh, yeah.
And the little Earl,
he
had a wife and 2 little bitty baby girls, and his house was still all shot up with his wife and kids inside. Like, whoever was after them.
Exist?
I don't know.
Gosh, I would think you would.
But there's a museum called the Hannah House Museum, and I think it's still open in Fairfield that you and I should go to, but it has all of everything about them there. I haven't been there yet. And I apologize if I don't get all my facts straight. It's just I'm relaying what I remember from the books I've read.
In Fairfield, there is something that is designated to the Well, we're going to take another commercial break, and we'll be right back and continue our story.
Do you bowl like this? That's great. Do you bowl like this? That's great too. That's because whether you're a pro or you just want to have a lot of fun, at Peggle's Silver Dollar Lanes, we have a lane for you. We have galaxy bowling, gaming for kids and adults, Joe's Pizza, a full bar, darts, pool, and fresh and clean bowling shoes. Boy, does that smell nice. So come on down to Peggle Silver Dollar Lanes in Effingham, where we have a lane for you.
My name is Robin Stanford. I own Stanford Marketing. It's a promotional products business along with an embroidery business. And we do custom hats, t-shirts, anything, you name it, we can make it. People like that we do stuff in-house and we can actually make things here and that we're not contracting the work out to other places. We never say no. We always try to find a way to do it. If anybody can do it, we can do it. We are hardworking women, that is for sure. Come to Stanford Marketing in Flora for all your custom and promotional needs.
Give me a lumber. Doors, paint, windows, electrical, plumbing, and much more. Oh yeah, give me all your guns too.
John Lucas.
What?
You better be dreaming about all the stuff we sell here at Zink Building Center.
Oh, I would. Zink Building Center in Louisville on Route 45. It's a cool place.
Welcome back to By the Way with Beth and Stacey. We're talking about the Shelton family. And one thing I want to say about when they shot up little Earl's house and his wife and kids were in it, he actually got hit by 8 bullets, and there was 21 bullets in his car. He survived that, and they took him to Deaconess in Evansville, and he was treated there. But, yeah, so one thing I want to say is Dalta, the grandfather of the lady that wrote this book, he lived on the Sisney Curve in a brick house that is still standing today.
Oh, yeah.
And
which one is that? Which one lived there?
Dalta.
The good one lived there.
Yes.
Okay.
But that house was also shot up. And a lot of you may know that house. It's still standing there. It is abandoned. It is empty, and the windows are all broken, and it is reported to be very haunted.
I've always heard it was super haunted.
Yeah, I know somebody, and I'm not going to name her by name because I don't know if she'd want me to do that, but she was taking, I believe, a photography class, and so she stopped by there to take a picture of the house for the photography class, and then later when she had the picture developed and looked at it, there was a black man standing in the window, and there hadn't been anybody there whenever she was there. But anyway, yeah. So I've seen the photo, and it is creepy.
It's pretty creepy. I want to see the photo, but you've always heard that people rent it; they don't stay long, so you know there's something to it.
Yeah. So that was Dalta's house, and he lived in that brick house, and then once he started getting shot at there, and then the whole family left. He left that house, and then other people tried to live in that house over the years, and it didn't matter who moved in there. There were shots fired. So that's why no one ever lived there.
Talk about not being able to sell a property.
Yeah,
because people that's where they live, and they didn't realize they didn't live there anymore. How funny is that? That house needs to be turned into a museum.
Yep. And so let's see, even Lula, she and her husband, she was married to a Pennington at the time. She was in a car, gunfire hit the car, and the man she identified as Charlie Harris was standing over her with a machine gun. He tried to finish the job, but his gun jammed. Basically, so this Blackie Harris, he was just shooting them all up.
Oh, my gosh. That's funny.
So Earl lived to be old. He died in Florida. And then little Carl and little Earl, they also lived to be older people. But let's see. I think I have some more. Do I have more pictures? Okay, let's go through our pictures before we run out of time.
I want to see him. Oh, my gosh.
This is Bernie.
That's Bernie.
This is Bernie.
See, now he looks bad.
Yeah.
He looks like a bad man in that picture.
I mean, it's just
he
such
looks like a
TV gangster, really. Like that slicked hair that's combed up like that, and the big ears, and he just has that look.
Definitely doesn't look like the same guy.
And when he was aged and jovial. Yeah. Nope. He was definitely, and he loved to fight. He loved to pick fights. He would go where there was a lot of men. He would go in a bar, and everyone would just try to avoid him, and he would just go around the room to try to pick a fight. Mm-hmm. He wanted to kill people. Because if they got in a fight with him, he would beat them up so bad they would die.
Yeah, he looks bad.
Okay, yep. Next picture. This is Earl, and it's sad for me to say I have a favorite one.
Is Earl your favorite?
I don't know. He just looks like a really nice man, but I know he wasn't. But I mean, that is Earl, and he was just kind of the second in command, and he did live to be old, and I'd like to think that he grew and old enough and wise enough that he regretted a lot of things and maybe turned his life around at the end. I mean, I would hope that for him.
I wonder if any of them ever went to church on Sunday. Like, once they were grown, being these really, really bad people. But it makes you wonder if they went ahead.
Oh, they probably did, because
they went to church on Sunday.
They had two different little personalities going on.
They
the one they presented to the nice people, and then the one that
I bet they continued going to church.
Let's see
killing people on Saturday night. Oh boy.
Okay, so this is Carl on the left when they were young. These are actually, I believe, maybe mugshots from when they were first arrested. Carl on the left, and that's Earl again on the right. So
they look a little bit more handsome there. Earl's a nice-looking younger fella.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But they just totally look like...
Is that the last picture? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that's is the Shelton gang. So let's see. Let me tie up any loose ends I have. That Blackie Harris.
Did you have a picture of him?
Let me see.
What if there was a picture of Blackie Harris?
I know there are pictures out there. Ty, you could probably Google one faster than I can find one.
Yeah, I'm
maybe,
curious.
Yeah. So anyway, it was just interesting to read this book called Inside the Shelton Gang by Ruthie Shelton, One Daughter's Discovery, because she didn't know any of this until she was a grown woman and taking care of her aging father, little Carl, and she learned all of this little by little. They actually went back to Clay County. After she got the story from her dad, she's like, Dad, I want you to take me there. I want to see Pond Creek. And he was like, no, I really don't think I ought to go back. And she's like, come on, Dad, take me back. And they ended up going back to Wayne County.
Where is Pond Creek?
And it's southeast of Fairfield.
Southeast of Fairfield.
And I think that when they went back, I want to say it was around 2008.
So it's okay, I'm getting my... Like if you're heading out of Fairfield going to the interstate.
If you were on Route 15. And yeah.
Oh boy.
That's Blackie.
That's Blackie Harris.
So if you would take Route 15 like east of Fairfield and then go south is how I understand it.
Look at him.
Yeah.
Yikers.
Yeah, he was a bad dude.
Blackie Harris. He looked creepy. Did not like Blackie.
So whenever they went back to Wayne County, they left Florida in a Suburban, just her and her dad and her husband and her daughter, I think. And they pulled into Wayne County, and he said, we need to stop by the sheriff's office first. And she was like, what? Why? And he was like, well, that's the rule. Whenever a Shelton comes back into Wayne County, we have to check in at the sheriff's office. And so even though he was in his late 80s or 90s at the time, she took him to the sheriff's office.
And he still had to check
he
in.
walked in, and there was a young deputy there, and he was like, hi, I'm Carl Shelton. And he said the guy about fell out of his chair. Because this was only like in 2008, I think, is when they went back. And anyway, he did. He checked in, and I was trying to find that year. But and then after that, he went to the Wayne County Press and talked to them, told them he was in town because he knew the guy that ran the press. He knew his dad. And before long, everybody in town knew that there was a Shelton back in town. They only ended up staying in town, I think, about 48 hours, and then they left.
So it makes you wonder, the ones that died young in town are probably buried in Fairfield. Do you think they all came back to be buried in Fairfield?
Well, Bernie, the one that died in Peoria, the family wanted him back in Fairfield to be buried by his brothers, and he had a wife at the time that said no way he's being buried in Peoria, and so that's where he's buried. But she wouldn't. I mean, the rest of the family wasn't happy about that.
Because I wonder where the dad's got to be in Fairfield. Ben's got to be in Fairfield.
Yeah, so I think the ones in Fairfield are Ben, Carl, Roy, and that might be it.
Oh, okay.
And then the rest of them are buried in Florida.
Even the mom? The mom's not with?
Yeah, because they ended up taking the mom to Florida, too, because her life was also in danger. They loaded everybody up, and the mom was not happy about it because she didn't want to leave home. But she did, and I think that they are there's a lot of burials in Florida, too. Way down there, too, like south of Tampa, I think.
Oh, is that they went way down deep in Florida.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's quite the story, and again, my storytelling of it is hit and miss, and for the most part, I've just told you things I read. I've read the 3 or 4 books now. This one was maybe my favorite because it was from the actual family's point of view.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and she would, if somebody's like telling this story when he's an old man, her dad told her, and her dad was Carl.
Little Carl.
So her grandfather was Dalta.
Mm-hmm.
So he's probably just bearing it all, so it's all true.
Oh, yeah.
That book's probably the closest to being truth than any of them.
And he didn't tell the story all at once, because how could you, honestly? You'd be
Where would you even start?
Yeah, he just started dropping little tidbits, and she's like, what? Who kidnapped you? Or, what are you talking about? Who shot you? Like all of these things. And then he was like, oh, that was the time that, I was on the run and da-da-da, or I was driving the armored car and this one guy attacked us. And she's just like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And then once she started learning a little bit, then there's a lot of information out there. I mean, she could Google some of it a little bit at a time or read books. I mean, gosh, they were in many books about gangs in the 1920s. I mean, they were considered America's bloodiest gang. I mean, they were a big deal back then. I mean, they were the same as Capone and all of those. I mean,
yeah, I watched this one. I think gangsters are fascinating anyway, and I was watching this one documentary on them, and I'm surprised they weren't mentioned in it, but it was a lot about Capone's gangs. And,
they get they're from a bigger
names,
city.
Their names escape me because they're hard to.
Now, when people talk about gangsters, they do focus on those big city ones, but the people that were alive at this time, they knew the Sheltons were just as big of a deal.
Oh yeah,
as the city ones. So, yeah, very interesting to me that they.
Well, they were
like
a big deal
if
they got Al Capone's attention in Chicago.
Yeah,
and East St. Louis, they did escape that way a lot. Interesting stuff.
Yes, very interesting. So
So get out your history books, people, and start studying a little bit on the Shelton gang.
Yep.
But I do think that brick house needs to be.
I don't think there's any saving it now. I mean, the roof is falling in. And
I know, but gosh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Wonder what happened to all the Shelton's money. Because there wouldn't have been a lot of descendants.
Yeah.
We had 3 grandchildren and then a couple.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Wonder where all that money went.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if they were making that much money per year in 1930, what would that be equal to now? A lot.
I don't know.
I have a feeling.
A lot, yeah.
I have a feeling they probably didn't make smart investments.
Well,
so.
I'm going to go with, they probably didn't they didn't call their Edward Jones guy.
And they probably didn't have insurance on anything, so all of the money they spent on all those buildings that were burnt down, they probably just...
I'm going to say they drank it away and...
gambled it away.
Ladies of the night away.
Oh, that's the other thing. Like when they did go to Florida, Earl, my favorite one...
Yeah.
He really isn't, but he bought a whole bunch of hotels in Georgia. And that was his new business.
Was these brothel?
Yes, they were all brothels. They were hotel rooms. They came with 2 things: a mattress and a woman. That's all that was in there.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, and then that's how he continued to make money.
Sure it was. Yeah, they're just
great people.
You talk about the devil on one side and angel on the other. Insane. Okay, well let's end with a little.
Okay.
One of my favorite people in the world, Francis Chan.
Okay.
Do you ever read any stuff? Francis Chan puts out a lot of religious Christian books and does a lot of series and stuff, and I love Francis Chan.
Okay.
Our greatest fear should not be of failure, but of succeeding at things in life that don't really matter. Do you get that one?
Yeah. Okay.
Our greatest fear should not be of failure, but of succeeding at things in life that don't really matter.
Yeah, that one, it requires a little bit of deep thought.
It does require. Well, he's really,
interesting.
The things
don't fear failure.
Don't feel failure.
Fear being successful at things that don't really matter.
Yeah.
Ouch. That kind of hurts.
Yeah, it does. That don't really. Yeah, I'm really successful at eating a lot of blizzards a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because failure's not bad. We've talked about failure a lot on this show. And
you learn from it.
You learn from failure. Failure's always, nerves are not a bad thing. It's like when I tell people, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to sing. I'm so nervous. I'm like, that's a good thing because you're going to pay attention to what's happened. Whenever you walk up on a stage, I've been singing since I was in the 4th grade, and every time I walk up on stage that first time, I always have butterflies to this day. You have to have a little bit of little something in there.
Fear there.
Okay, that's it. What a great show.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
God bless you and have a great day.